What's good, everyone? It is I, Cerebral4. Like I said on the previous video, it's time for me to show you the most updated version of the Gengar Mimikyu GX deck that I use. I use this deck very frequently, and it hasn't really changed since the original deck video that I posted, but it's been quite a while since that video, and I guess I have made some key changes. So it's about time I show it to you guys. So the deck is still centered around this Gengar and Mimikyu Tag Team GX, and you want to take advantage of the poltergeist attack on this Pokemon. For every trainer in your opponent's hand, you're going to do 50 damage. So if they have a lot of trainers over there, you can do very, very high damage for just 2 psychic energy. Our aim is to do between 150 to 250 damage. That's very good for 2 psychics. And depending on your opponent's deck, the item lock, and if they're unlucky enough to have a lot of items, we can easily do 300, 350, even over that amount. So it makes this Pokemon very good, the old poltergeist attack, from other Gengar cards too. Horror House GX is another key attack in this deck. For 1 psychic energy, you can completely freeze your opponent from playing any card for 1 turn. That includes Pokemon, energies, not just trainers. So it's very, very strong, and it gives us the opportunity to slow our opponent down, to get the Vileplume out as soon as possible. And that's what makes this deck kind of good. It has the potential to only give your opponent 1 turn of playing trainers, playing items, and then you will have a strong lock that should last you through the end of the game if you do your stuff right. If you have a second psychic energy, you can also draw until you have 7 cards and force your opponent to draw until they have 7 cards. And since they won't be able to play anything on their next turn anyway, you can use this Horror House GX attack to combo with a very, very strong poltergeist on the next turn and hopefully get a big 1-hit knockout. It's a strong little combo. If your opponent only has 1 Pokemon down when you do this, I mean, you can even just finish them off and they won't be able to do anything. Sort of get a cheap win. But for the most part, we just want to slow our opponent down so we can play Vileplume on our next turn. So Gengar's stats aren't really the greatest by Tag Team GX standards now. 240 HP. It's just decent. It's really actually bad compared to the Pokemon that have 250, 260, 270, and even 280. But we're going to work with that, and it's not like it's going to die in 1 shot anyway. The darkness weakness is an extreme problem in Expanded. It's your biggest problem, honestly, holding this deck back, but we gotta deal with it. And the fighting resistance can be handy. And double retreat cost is pretty typical for a Pokemon like this. So, I have 2 of these Pokemon right here, only because I've ever owned 2. All of the matches that you guys have seen when I use this deck, I've only ever managed to have 2 Gengars in the deck. And I get by to be honest, because when your opponent knocks out 2 of these, you're going to lose anyway. But ideally, you want to have 3 to 4, with 3 being the most ideal number. Just so that you can boost your consistency and, not just to see it, but just in case one gets prized, or if both of them are prized, then you're screwed. It's just for these kinds of reasons. It's better to have 3 as opposed to just 2. Make sure you see it more frequently. The premise of this deck is, of course, to get this guy out by turn 1 as soon as possible. So it's not really a problem, it's just the prize thing, that's the issue. But if you have 2, I guess you can get by with 2 as well, if I got by. Now, the Vileplume line is also going to be kind of typical. 3 Vileplume, this card is from Ancient Origins. 130 HP is kind of low for Stage 2s these days, but admittedly, this card, is kind of old from Ancient Origins. It's kind of getting there. Irritating Pollen. When we get this Pokemon out, both players can't use any item cards. And this works from the bench, which is why you use this instead of something like Trevenant. Now, this is going to hinder us as well, so we got to be careful. But I built the deck so that it doesn't really bother you. You're going to play all the item cards in here, mostly, are for consistency, to get Vileplume as soon as possible, and then you don't care if you have other stuck stuff in your hand. You just want to use Poltergeist all day. Take advantage of that. But 3 Vileplume, and then the rest of the line is also going to be kind of typical. Run 4 Oddish. I do the Unbroken Bonds Oddish simply because it has the best HP at 60 and 1 retreat. You do have a few options in Expanded for Oddish, but I mean, most of them have 50 HP or they have double retreat cost, stuff like that. You can attack with any of them anyway, so this one is the best one for me. Yarn 1. Should be good. And then the Gloom, I'm still running the Boundaries Crossed Gloom. 80 HP, other ones do have 90 HP, but they have 2 retreat cost. This one has 1 retreat cost, which is very important for me. And the water resistance can be handy too. And, even though Foul Order is kind of a useless attack, this is actually the only Gloom card that we can possibly make a decent attack with. I don't think the other ones you can really make an attack. So in extremely, extremely desperate situations, we can confuse the opposition, I guess, and that's it. But mostly it's because of the 1 retreat. If you want to run on a different Gloom, it's up to you, but I'm still running this one. Okay. And then the other Pokemon, we do have Mew as an additional attacker here. This Pokemon is actually an excellent fit in this deck. It accomplishes a lot of things at once. For starters, it is just a basic regular Pokemon. So it can hit through the GX immune Pokemon like Keldeo, like Alolan Ninetales, perhaps some other Pokemon with abilities and effects like that. And with Memory of Dawn, of course, we can copy the Poltergeist attack. So this is a strong copy-paste Gengar attacker that has a lot of less risk, just given 1 prize. Free retreat Pokemon, and counter could be handy too sometimes. It's just an all-around excellent Pokemon. Ideally, you want to run at least 2 of this guy. I only have 1 here because of the Emolga engine. But, like I've said, if you have more Gengars, you're going to drop Emolga, you're going to add another Gengar perhaps, another Mew, and then 1 other card, maybe another Mew or a Gengar. But since I don't, I'm just running 1 Mew as our non-GX, I guess, copy attacker. Tapu Lele GX can also count as an attacker in this deck. You will use Energy Drive a lot more frequently than you think with this deck. Sometimes when Gengar can't really do it, depending on the matchup. But mostly this Pokemon is in here for its consistency, letting me search any supporter, fetching any supporter. It's important to see the Brigette as soon as possible and gather your Oddishes, Gengars and stuff. So this is why it's in here. Easily recruitable. It can get any supporter. It's perfect. Okay. And then the last Pokemon is this Emolga. Now this might seem like a weird choice, but the way I play the deck, this version, this card helps. So Emolga is a Pokemon that can search different copies of itself and add it from the deck to the hand. And this enables us to take advantage of cards like Communication, Soften Up, Ultra Balls. It's kind of deck thinning. You're adding cards in your hand, and then you can use a Juniper, discard the Emolgas, and it's like you're drawing extra cards. It seems kind of weird, but trust me, it works. It's a free retreating Pokemon too, so it's a great opener. You want to open with this, and then maybe move Gengar in the active position when you're gonna go for the Horror House attack. But if I had more Gengars, I would definitely play the deck, differently. It's important to have a good amount of basics too. Like my rule is to have at least 10 or 11, with 11 being my minimum preference. I've played decks that had only 9 basics because you don't have much of a choice, but I don't want to give my opponent the opportunity to get a lot of free cards. So that's why. Every card is in here for a specific purpose. I don't want to have any filler Pokemon for just no reason. Emolga, like I've said, it gives us that bit of help, that searchability, and it's a good little free retreating Pokemon. I mean, the deck is pretty straightforward. It's all about consistency. You just want to get Vileplume as soon as possible, and then take advantage of Poltergeist all day long. So these are the Pokemon. Now for the trainers. The trainers, they'll also be kind of funky. If you haven't tested with the deck yourself, it's kind of difficult for me to give some explanations, but I guess I'll try. For starters, the computers are just going to be the ace pick of choice. Maximize consistency. You don't really want any other ace spec in this deck, not even something like Gold Potion, because once you get the Vileplume out, you're gonna have the item lock for yourself too. So this is just for maximum consistency. This can transform into BB search. It can Brigitte, not BB search. It can transform into Brigitte. It can transform into a heavy ball. Just any supporter, any card we need, rare candy, you name it. That's why it's in here. Next up, the balls. This is where I guess you really got to test for yourself. Otherwise, it's not going to make sense to you. But I run a bunch of different cards. We run the Nest Ball as a generic, any basic Pokemon fetcher. Run the Heavy Ball. This is for Vileplume. Run Double Cherish Ball. This can get Gengar and it can get Tapu Lele. Very good consistency card. And I do run the Communication for just about any Pokemon. And we can use a Molga to easily meet the condition. And an Ultra Ball as a sort of more flexible communication, you could say, when I don't have a Pokemon in hand. So it seems a bit weird, like I've said. You're going to have to test with yourself, but, it works, trust me. When Sword and Shield comes out, maybe some cards are going to be replaced, like the Heavy Ball for the new card that lets you get any evolution Pokemon. That's probably better. And some changes, but for now, this is how the deck looks like. Other typical cards are going to be the Rare Candy. You need this card, 4 of these, to get Vileplume as soon as possible. You want to see this, you want to search this, so it's very important. Professor's Letter, just 1 of this card. Psychic Energies is important to have them as soon as possible, and this can help us, fetch them if we see this. You don't want to miss a beat attaching energies because, making that Horror House GX attack at the right time is what you want. Like, you want to do this as soon as possible and, gather the energies for poltergeist. You don't want to be missing turns of attaching energies. There's no really any energy acceleration in this deck. You're just relying on slowing your opponent down and manually building them up. Right. What else do I have? I do have the mail, like I've said, for consistency. It's going to be good before you get the Vileplume out. And the other stuff is, I guess, techs. Normally I run my double field blower, field blower megaphone. We just run 1 in this case. It could be handy. We might be able to use this before we get into Vileplume. So just 1. And then the 1 stretcher. This is definitely a card you would take out if I had more Gengars and more Mews. The point of this card is to just, I guess if they kill the Vileplume or if you have to sacrifice the Mew early, you can just get it back. The same goes with Gengar. So it can be handy. You never know, but you would swap this for more Gengars and Mews for sure. It has come up with me sometimes when they knock out the Vileplume and then I can just grab it back and evolve it again. But for the most part, it's a card that you would take out if you had some other cards. Like if you have more the Gengars and Mews. Right. And then the last item is this Floatstone. Floatstone is very important in this deck because you want to attach it on Oddish before you evolve into Vileplume. Vileplume has a 3 retreat cost, so a lot of the times people are just going to try and get it stuck in the active position and just stall you out. So it's good if you put the Floatstone on it first. You're not always going to be able to do so, and we have the Ultra of the Moon for that. If we attach a Psychic Energy, we could just move the Vileplume out of the way, and it's going to do the same thing as Floatstone pretty much. Lose an energy, but it is what it is. But Floatstone is still important. A bunch of these, play them down on your Pokemon. There isn't really any other tools in this deck. And since I mentioned the stadium, this is going to be our stadium of choice, Ultra of the Moon, to give me that free retreat for Gengar. It's very important to be able to switch Gengar if we want to and not lose the energies. So this stadium helps out a lot. Same with Tapu Lele, same with any Pokemon that's going to have Psychic Energies on. So very, very good. It's the stadium of choice. You can do something like, I don't know, like Tropical Beach if you have that, or some other cards, but this one is the one for me. Right. And all that's left is the supporters, I believe. I don't think I've missed anything. So just the supporters. We have triple Brigitte here, not BB Search, like I said earlier. This card is very important. That's why I'm running 3. You want to see it to search out a combination of Odysseus, Gengar, Mew, even Emolga, depending on what you started with. It's very important. So we run 3 of these. 4 is a bit overkill, as once you use one of these, you don't really need the other ones. So, that's why we have Tapu Lele GX in here too. 3 is a good number. You don't need 4. With Lele, the Cherish Ball can transform into Brigitte. Same with Communication. Same with Ultra Ball. We have a bunch of options. Next up, we have other expanded supporters, I suppose. Gotta have the one Chorus, gotta have double Scala. Important to get rare candies, important to get significant cards, to get Vileplume out. And then Juniper, just a general, very strong supporter. Once we get Vileplume out, we're not going to care about stuck item cards, so we're good with just discarding a lot of stuff in this deck and just going all out, full speed. So Juniper makes sense. 3 of her. And the other supporters, N. So like I mentioned on the previous deck video a long while ago now, there is no Cynthia in this deck and you just have maximum N or 3 Ns. The point of this is that we need a way to mess with our opponent's hand. A lot of the times what they're going to do is they're going to try and play a bunch of items and have their hand not have a lot of them so you don't do a lot of damage. N can reset their hand in the most effective manner. I didn't want to try stuff like peeking red card before. It doesn't really work in this deck. You remember, item lock affects you. N is the most effective card for this purpose. So if your opponent hasn't really taken a lot of prizes, it's really effective. And it's just a good supporter card in general. So triple N, use this instead of Cynthia. As many copies as you can. And for the last supporters, I do have the Guzma. Very, very good in this deck. I wish I could run more, but you can only afford 1 pretty much the way I have it. Maybe, I guess if you drop some other cards, maybe, like I've said, if I drop the Emolgas for other stuff, maybe we can do double of this. But it helps us switch and pull an opponent's Pokemon, which is better in this deck than Lysander. It works better than Lysander in this deck. And then the last supporter, Pokemon Center Lady. I like this card as a one-off. Give a little bit of a healing to Gengar. Maybe turn some 2-hit KOs to 3-hit KOs and annoy my opponent. Get rid of Special Condition 2. That can be pretty handy. It saved me a couple of times. Just a good little supporter. Since we're running a big tag team Pokemon, a little bit of healing can go a long way, make a difference. Since you can't run things like items, this is your best option for me. So you can drop it if you want for another Guzma, another card. But I like it, so I have it. And then the rest is just 11 Psychic Energies. Not too many, not too few. And that's basically the updated deck, guys. It's going to change even more with Sword and Shield, I believe. But this is the one I've been using for the longest time now. Like ever since we got stuff like the Cherish Balls in Unified Minds and stuff. It works really well. So I've already shown you guys a bunch of matches. I'm gonna show maybe even more with this deck. I always show a lot of matches with this deck, and hope you guys enjoy them. So this has been SaberWolf94. Hope you guys subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and share this video with your friends. If they want to know a good way to build Gengar and Expanded, I'm confident this is one of the best builds around. It serves me very well. I get a lot of easy, fast wins in this deck and Expanded. Against grindier matches, it can pose a lot of problems. Many decks have a lot of items in them, and you can just easily destroy them. Just a very good deck. I guess to quickly mention some of the weaknesses. Darkness decks, they're going to destroy you almost all the time. I've showed a few, situations where we do good against darkness decks, but I mean, this guy, he just dies. You can't make it. If they just bring a bunch of darkness energies on the field, no matter what you do, they have you in checkmate position. So darkness decks are a big problem. GX immune decks, we have the Mew as our answer to them, but you still got to be careful. We've got the Guzma too that can help, but you still got to be careful. If you go up against something like Pyro, if anybody plays that, it's an auto loss. You can't do anything about that. So, the deck does have some glaring weaknesses, but it's to maximize the consistency. I tried a very earlier version with this, having a Pokemon like Trevenant in here too, and it just makes things a lot messier. If you want to try it out, you're free to do so. But this is my list. Trust me, it's quite consistent. Scroll through my channel, look at all the matches with it. You see it's pretty effective. And I'm going to show you guys even more. So, I've talked enough. Sabro94, thank you guys for watching. We'll see.